Hello Yuki Bandit. So this is a little video for Love Is All Around and the melody parts. So I did a previous video on the rhythm and ways of playing arpeggios and making it sound more interesting before, and a little play along. Well, this one here is just to colour it within the group with some lead parts, because there's a little instrumental part and a breakdown of the arpeggios that are involved. There's also a bass line for people that have got bass ukes, or the strumming pattern, a nice way of playing. So I'm going to go over each one of these step by step. So the first one is the melody, and this starts with over a G chord. So the chords underneath, just a quick brief overview of that, is G major, 2 strums, A minor for strums, C for 2 strums, D for 2 strums, and that keeps going. And underneath that we have this little melody, which is really nice. And the idea is, looking at the tablature there, looking at the numbers, this tells us which strings and frets we should be playing on. So numbers are the frets and the lines are the strings. And we've got to remember that if we were laying it flat down and it would be parallel with the fretboard, then the top number 2 is actually the A string. So as you look at it, the top is the A, then it's the E, then it's the C, and then the one at the bottom here is going to be the G string. So we should be playing this on the A string on the 2nd fret. So we're on the A string, 2nd fret. I'm going to play the 2nd fret twice. And we really want to do this with the 2nd finger, and then play it open. Then we're on the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, which is our E string. So we're now on the E string. So we're on the 3rd fret on the E string, and then we're going to play open on the 1st string, which is the A, open on the E. So between the A and the E string, starting on the A string, twice on the 2nd fret, then open, then the 3rd fret on the E string, and open on the 1st string, the A, and open on the E string. So it's very slowly, this would sound like this. I'm just using my thumb to pluck. It doesn't matter what you pluck with, finger or thumb. Just want a nice smooth sound. But it is important to parallel the fingers with the frets. In other words, if you're using the 2nd fret, try and use the 2nd finger, and 3rd fret, 3rd finger. As long as you haven't got any issues using those fingers, then that's what you should try and do, because it keeps everything in line with how you'd play the chords and without moving your hand. And the thumb should be obviously in the middle, as you would with a chord as well. So that played a little bit quicker. And that takes that first melody line. Then there's a 1 beat pause, and then after we played the C chord, so the C is going to be played, there is now the 3rd fret on the A string, played twice, 2nd fret, played once, open on the A string, played once, and then back to the 2nd fret, and then you let it ring out. Obviously, if you know the melody line, listen to the song, get the melody in your head. This is the lines that you hear being sung in the verse. I feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my toes. That's what you should be hearing when you're playing that melody line. So that second part was 3, 3, 2, 0, 2, as I feel it in my toes. So these musical symbols above just tell us the gaps. If you read music, you can use that to your advantage. If you don't, you should have the melody in your head. That will help a lot. Rather, I'm not going to explain the reading of the music here, but the values dictate the spaces and the gaps between the notes. So these 3, 3, 2 are a little bit quicker than the 0 is a longer note, and that last one 2 there is ringing. So if I put the whole line together, then there's a little pet space, and that's what's played over those chords. Okay, so on to arpeggios, and I'll reel it up. So the G, A minor, so assuming you know what a G chord, an A minor, a C chord and the D chord is. If I move this down so it's a little bit easier to see everything, there you go. So the idea really here is that we're going to be playing a G chord and play the 3rd, 2nd, 1st and 2nd string. And you got to remember, when I'm numbering these, I number as if it's a step ladder. The first string would be the one would be at the bottom, and so I'm actually playing from a C string to an an E string to an A string, back to an E. Now I'm going to do that throughout. So when I go to the A minor, there is no frets involved. If you get used to playing the A minor and still playing them, it does help you, because it means if you wanted to bring in that note or muck around with the arpeggio system and do it your own way, at least you're familiar to chord shapes. So reluctantly try to not just take them out, although that's what you're doing when you play the arpeggio. It's a nice habit just to keep your finger there as if you were playing the A minor and then play those strings. Okay, so you've got the G chord, which is going from string name would be the C, E, A, E, and then we're going from the C, E, A, E again. And then for a C chord, you do the same thing. And literally 3, 2, 1, 2 again, and then the last one, D chord. So this would sound like. And so that is the arpeggio line. It sounds really effective. The idea is that we're playing over people playing the chords. So we'll have people playing a very basic strumming pattern, 2 strums on each, and then over the top we've got the melody that we can play, and we've got this arpeggio part which will complement over the top of the rhythm. So it's an extra part to play over the top. On your own you can mix and match all these as much as you like and play it any way you want. So we're going to look at next part 3, we're going to look at the bass line. Hey, so here's the bass line, starting on first of all the G note, which is on the 3rd fret on the 4th string. So remember the bottom of the ladder, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're on the 4th string, that is an E string, and G note is on the 3rd fret. A note will be on the 5th fret, C note will be below it on the 3rd fret, so that would be on the 3rd string, and then D would be on the 3rd string on the 5th fret. And these are the notes that would be compatible with these chords. So G chord, play a G note, A minor, play an A note, C, play a C note, and then D chord, play a D note. And the idea is to link them up with a rhythm that fits the song. And if you listen to the background rhythm of the song, it goes something like this. We've got G, which rings out. Then there's an 8th note between the A and the C, between the G and the A. So we're going to go G, G, A. Now the A and the C, we're going to go A, C, C, D. So what you're doing is when you play that first note, you let it ring, then you play another note just before you go to the next note. Now that's ringing, we're going to play another note before we get to the C, then another note before we get to the D. And it should get something like this. You've got G, G, A, C, C, D. Then again, G, G, A, C, C, D, and that's the bass line pattern for the background. Okay, so here's an alternate way of playing the strumming pattern. You could quite easily just do the 2 strums like we said before, nice 2 strums on every chord, which is simple. And if you're finding that you know, compatible with you singing and playing and you don't want to make it any harder, then just stick with that. But obviously if you want to make it more interesting, especially if you're playing on your own, you want to replicate the sound of the track a bit more, then what we're trying to do is impersonate what we hear with the percussion section or the rhythm section. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to introduce the percussive. I'm going to hit the top of the ukulele as if it was the snare drum in the track, and that's on the 2nd and the 4th beat. So those X's are on the 2nd and the 4th beat there, and the rhythm that you're playing on every chord is slightly different. You're going to play 1, 2 and 3, 4 and, with the 2 being a percussive and the 4 being a percussive. So I'm going to call that hit, because what we're going to do is we're going to hit the ukulele. So if I break it down, if you want a G chord and you strum the first one, it's just a down strum, 1, and then when we play the 2 and, we're going to hit the ukulele just over the top, not too hard obviously, just to get a nice percussive sound. And if you're using your first finger, then you come down with the hit, so the first finger's underneath the strings and that's going to hit upwards. So it's basically strum down, hit up. Now if you use the thumb, a good thing to learn is to combine those 2 elements together. So you're going to go down, tap, and then use the finger. That way you're keeping the skin that's obviously hitting the strings, which makes it sound quite warm, and the string, the skin that's hitting the strings on the way up It's going to keep that same warmth sound. If we use the thumb on the way up, you notice the nail is hitting the strings, just like if we use the nail on the way down. So obviously if you want that variation, then you can go for that. There's nothing wrong with trying to make it sound different on down and up strokes. If you want to keep that warm sound, then practice doing the thumb and the first finger together. And that gives you that continuous warmth in the sound. So experiment with what you feel is comfortable for you on this particular song, but in general try and practice using more than one style really. So here we've got down strum on the G, and I'm going to do this with my finger. So you're going to go down, tap, up, and then I'm going to do the same on the A minor and the same on the C and then the D. Now if I put that together a little bit more in time, so you're going to go and that's really nice. You've got that little percussive element, and that's basically the last part of our shenanigans for the techniques that you can use on this song. A lot of the things that we're doing here with regards to bass line, percussive, arpeggios, lead can be done with any ukulele song. And if you break down the song into different parts, you might find that you like playing the little melodies, you might find that you just want to stick to doing the chords but make them a bit more interesting, or you might like the finger picking. So obviously on every song you can find a way of adapting what you've learned in terms of technique to that particular song, and we're going to be looking at that more in future on some of our other songs that are quite popular, especially ones that are quite common that you hear a lot. And when there's a lot of you playing the same thing, it can sound a little bit plain, if you like. So if you've got a few little things going on in the song, a few little riffs, a few little patterns like that, it can make the song more fun for you to play, but also interesting for other people to listen to. So hope you enjoyed, and I will speak to you again soon. Okay, this is a little bit of a Billy bonus, and so Love Is All Around Us. I thought I'd just give a little bit of an example of all these parts put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play down the basic rhythm and then slowly add in all these over the loop pedal, and hopefully it makes sense and it works, and you'll be able to see what I mean about if there was a few of us playing this song and we added some of these little intricacies together, it would sound quite interesting, very musical. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put the click track on first. So not too worried about the speed, that's about right. It could be a little bit slower than that, but that's about right. We'll use that. And what I'm going to do is play 2 strums on every one of those to start with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do that again. G, okay, so hopefully you can hear that. It's quite low where I am, but you should be able to hear it through the computer quite well. So there's the G chord and the basic strums, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the melody over the top. Now what I'm going to do is add the arpeggios. Now I add in the strumming pattern from the bottom before I go to the bass. Now I'm going to swap to the bass guitar to fill it in with the final part. Successful so far. we've got our loop. So what I'll do, hopefully that makes sense, take the metronome out. Hopefully you can hear that nice and clearly. So we've got the arpeggios, the melody, the bass line, the extra strum pattern with the basic strum to set it up at the beginning. And there you go, guys. So that is a layering of all those parts rather than just playing the same thing. There you go. Nice.